Gotta get the lights right. Gotta get the lights right. Hey, welcome back to Grit Gym. Welcome back to Grit Gym. We come to you every day at 12:30. Gotta take my glasses off so you can actually see me. Every day at 12:30, we come to you to talk about your health, your exercise, mindset, nutrition, and recovery. You gotta get clear with these. This is the number one resource in your life is your health. You got your health, your wealth, your relationships, and your time. A lot of people want to put time first. A lot of people want to put relationships first. Some people even want to put wealth first and get hated for it. I don't get what the point of that is, but no doubt about it, health is the most important resource, because without your health, you're not going to be able to do anything with your money. You're not going to be able to enjoy your relationships, and you're going to wish you had less time without your health. Go ask a cancer patient, would they rather have more health or would they rather have more time? Because I guarantee you they don't want to go through chemo longer. They don't want to feel like shit longer. They want health. If you were in a terrible position with your health, and you knew that you had 3 months to live, would you rather live those months with utmost health, or would you rather extend it for another 9 months? Which one would you rather do? I think I'm going to take the health every time. I'd much rather have a quality 3 months than have a 9 months of feeling like crap. Your health is your number one resource in your life, and you have to take care of this, and you have to take responsibility for this. It might not be your fault where you are in your life right now, but it is sure as shit your responsibility, okay? It might not be your fault, but it is your responsibility. You are the only one who can make your life incredible. There can be people that help along the way. That's what I'm here for. I can only help, though. I can only point you in a direction. I can only encourage you. I can only push you so far. And then at some point, you've got to actually take the action to complete the process. All right, so if you guys have questions, please ask in the comments section below. Give me some feedback too. I love feedback. The other day, what was it? Yesterday, I told somebody this. It was Aaron. Aaron and I were having a conversation at the gym, and I said, "Hey, I take criticism really well, so I welcome it." And somebody goes, "I hate your ears." And I go, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "You're right. You do take criticism well." And it was very well played. It was very, it was cool. It was cool of him to do it. But if you have questions about your health, you got questions about exercise, mindset, nutrition, recovery. I've been studying this stuff for 20 years now. I got my first book on strength and conditioning when I was, when in 1997. It was 1997. My grandma gave me my first book on strength and conditioning. My grandma gave us a book for every Easter that we've been alive. Where every one of her grandkids got a book at Easter. That was my book. I think she noticed that I really wanted to be a big, strong guy. I really wanted to be the good athlete and do all this stuff. And she knew that I had taken a liking to this lifting stuff, and so she gave me a book on the topic. In that book, all of a sudden, I couldn't get enough information. It was like, oh my God, somebody's already been where I want to go. They know how to do this. This information is out there. And I grabbed for more books and grabbed for more books. Couldn't get enough information. I'd already been lifting a lot, but now I had some actual tangible data, some information, some pioneers that had come before me I was able to learn from. So I got 20 years of all this knowledge. After a while, it gets to a point where the novelty of it is all kind of wore off. The romance is gone, and you're just kind of learning, and you're like, it's kind of a grind to learn more. So I devoted 1 hour of my day every day to studying something on strength and conditioning, something about mindset, something about nutrition, something about recovery. For 1 hour every day, I would read, I would watch videos, I'd do DVDs, do something. So I have all of this information up in my head. I'm more than willing to share it with you guys. But anyway, what are we talking about today? We're talking about why you don't, like, sugar isn't necessary for a glycemic effect. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about the glycemic index. And what the glycemic index is, it's a way that we use to measure how much sugar is actually in your blood. It's also a way that we use to measure how much insulin is in your blood. It's also a way to measure how much, not really measure, but to kind of get an idea of how much insulin your body is going to have to pump out, and how much how your body's responding to glucagon. Okay, insulin and glucagon are both hormones that we're going to get into here in a second. And although a lot of these terms, these things, like, you hear them, but you don't really have a real good grasp around them, that's okay. Stick with this, because some of this stuff can kind of be overwhelming. And I really think, like, 10 years from now, we're going to look back at this video and we're going to be like, we didn't have a clue what we were talking about. Because I don't think doctors have a clue what they're talking about. You talk to parents of kids that have type 1 diabetes, and they will tell you that they don't think the doctors have a clue as to what they're talking about. And the doctor is not as invested in the health as that parent is for their kid. That kid is the number one thing in their life. There's nothing more important to them than that kid. So they have studied this stuff. They have dug in. They have read maybe more than that doctor even has on the subject. And research right now, there are so many diabetics in the world. Diabetic has just been this explosive, I don't know if you want to call it a disease yet, but let's call it a disease. It's an explosive disease. There are so many people with diabetes right now and where technology is, we can gather so much data on this that we have a lot of numbers running around right now. So we've got to figure out a way to actually use this data. And the next 10 years are going to be so interesting around this subject. But we're just going to list out some of the basics here. Some of what we do, what we think that we know, what we think is going on right now with the blood sugar thing is that when you eat sugary foods, your sugar levels rise. Okay, the scary thing, the thing that's everybody's scared of right now, and I hope that by the end of this video, and I intend to make this clear by the end of this video, is that this is not a scary subject. Sugar is not a scary thing. It's not worth getting into an argument with on the internet. It's not worth depriving your kid of anything. I mean, besides like just being reasonable. It is not a scary subject. There is nothing wrong with sugar. And you will see by the end of this video, that will be very clear. That will be very clear. All right. So what is the glycemic index? Glycemic index is a measurement. When we eat white bread, what happens? Sugar levels go up, right? When we eat table sugar, sugar levels go up. When we eat boxed foods that have a bunch of high fructose corn syrup in it, sugar levels go up, right? Now, when that goes up, this is just the basics. When that sugar level rises, what happens? Well, it's on some level, if we have an imbalance in the body, okay, and remember that Dr. Lisa Lewis was on here a while ago, and she said that people think balance is like this. Balance isn't stuck in one spot. Balance is this throw between. It's like being on a skateboard or a surfboard. You have to throw your weight side to side and make these huge dramatic to create balance. Balance isn't always stuck right here. It can be, but balance is this spectrum from side to side or from front to back or whatever it is. So our sugar levels go way high. Yeah, we're probably a little toxic at that point. We're probably not in a very good state. I don't want to use the word toxin here. Get that word out of your mouth or out of your head. Toxin, that is my poor use of words. Once we get to a certain level of sugar, body didn't like that. So the body is going to say, hey, I'm going to pour in some insulin to pull out some of that sugar and shove it away and where I can store it. I can store it in my liver. I can store it in my muscles. I'm going to store it wherever I can because I want that for later. Okay, it might even, if you have enough of it, store it as fat. Okay. Now, this isn't the scary thing. This is not the scary thing. Don't be scared of this. All right. So, but that does happen. That's kind of how it happens. That's the basics of how it happens. Now, what happens when your sugar gets too low? Because that's no good either. You can actually die from having your sugar go too low. So your sugar gets low enough, or you're starting to exercise, so your body's like, hey, we need some sugar getting transported around here so that we can be on top of this, right? So you start exercising, or your sugar gets too low, or whatever it is. You have to go on a run, you get all amped up. Glucagon comes along. Glucagon's another, and it pushes sugar and fat and protein into the blood. Okay, so they're kind of opposites. Insulin and glucagon are kind of opposites. Glucagon pushes nutrients into your blood, and insulin pulls nutrients out of your blood. Now, both of these are extremely significant hormones. Okay, neither of these are bad. A lot of people want to put insulin in the bad category. Don't ask me why. Now, this is all based, so far, this has all been based on blood sugar. And I'm going to get into more topics here in a second because it's not just about blood sugar. The sugar isn't necessarily what created either of these. This could have been anything. You could have had a steak that no sugar, just fat and protein, right? And you will still have an insulin response. Do you know what I'm saying? You will still have an insulin response even though there was no sugar present in the meal that you ate. Your body is just going to respond with a little bit of insulin because it's going to digest it and it's going to put it, and then it's got to be transported. So it's got to go in the blood to be able to be transported. Okay, you know that after a really fatty meal, if we were to take a vial of your blood, it would actually be kind of a pink color because of the amount of fat that's inside of it. Kind of gross, right? But anyway, so just because it's sugar, or just because it could be anything, and it's going to have an insulin response. You're going to have a response to the food that you eat. Insulin is going to go up anytime that you eat. It is not a bad thing. Insulin also has a few other characteristics. For one, it's extremely anabolic. You want big muscles? You want a little bit of an insulin response, okay? These guys that are real, like, just massively huge, well, they're not just taking steroids to jump their testosterone up. Insulin is in many ways, arguably, more anabolic than testosterone is. Did it just go wide on you? I hope so. So, if it's more anabolic, meaning anabolic means you put on muscle and you cut fat. Okay, so if it's more anabolic, why aren't we using this? We do want to use this. Mostly, it's just not that big a deal for most of us. Most of us that are trying to lose fat just don't need to worry about it. The rest of us that are trying to stay healthy, we also don't need to worry about it. If you're diabetic, you do need to be concerned about this. You need to be very concerned about this. Not worried, concerned. Worried means that you're scared that you're going to screw it up. Concerned means you have a concern. You're thinking about it logically. You want to be concerned about this, okay? Because it does matter with your health, okay? For the rest of us, insulin and glucagon, not the big a deal. And if insulin is anabolic, then we want to use this, okay? We want to use this to a certain extent. We don't want to be afraid of it, okay? So there are other things. So no matter what you put in your body, you're going to have an insulin response, right? Some things are going to have a higher insulin response than others, all right? So sugar might not necessarily be the thing that you use to drive up your insulin. Kind of crazy. I was in this conversation with somebody the other day. This is months ago, actually. Someone was trying to argue with me on a post that we had on here, and they're like, "You're going to disagree with this doctor and this doctor and this doctor." And I was like, "Yeah, I am. I don't know what to tell you. Go read, go study. Maybe your doctor should go study up on what insulin does." But he was saying how he eats gummy bears after his workouts to drive up his insulin, even though he's trying to lose fat. It's like, well, that's stupid, dude. Why wouldn't you just drink a glass of milk? Dairy is high insulin, which we're going to get into here in a second. But the big concept here is you want to think of there is always a certain amount of blood sugar, there's always a certain amount of fat, and there's always a certain amount of protein floating around your blood. You need this. You need these things are transporting all the time. And a few other things to think about. You think of your fat being a bad thing, but really it's storage of energy. Okay. Something else to think about is that you're storing glucose all over in your body. Your muscles have a certain amount of glucose in them. Your liver has a lot of glucose in it. When you go low carb, and you really start to deplete out these glucose stores, well, guess what happens? You lose weight on the scale because you have less glucose in your body. You didn't lose anything except the glucose. You didn't lose any fat. You just lost the glucose. So even though you seem like you're losing weight, you're maybe not losing fat. So the second that you eat that pizza and you drive up, you got more sodium in your body, you got more glucose in your body, and you're like, oh shit, I gained all this weight. Well, that's silly. Don't. That's a way to sabotage your own progress. Now, your body always has these in it. It always has glucose, always has blood. By the way, blood sugar is glucose. Glucose is sugar. Okay, it's just nomenclature. You just in this whole video, if I say glucose or if I say sugar or if I say blood sugar, even if I say carbohydrate, they're all the same thing floating around your blood, floating in your body the way that you're storing them. So now think of the ways that we store protein in the body, because we do store protein, but most people don't think of it this way. You're storing protein in your muscle. Okay, you're storing protein in the muscle in your fingers, in the muscle in your forearm. Okay, if you're stuck on a deserted island, your body isn't necessarily going to go just for the fat and just for the glucose that's stored in your body. It's also going to go for your muscle because that's energy. It's all storage. Okay, you use your muscles a little bit more than you probably use your fat, but still, it's storage. It's storage of protein, it's storage of carbohydrate, and it's storage of fat for energy to increase the survivability of your body. That's not what this whole thing is. If we look at genetics and like biology and anthropology, all of us have we are the descendants of what survived. We're better at surviving because of that. Okay, so everything is built around you being able to survive, and it will be in future years too. If people just keep eating the way that they're eating, well, all the diabetics are going to die, and the people that are left over are the people who are going to be able to be better at dealing with carbohydrates. That's just kind of how it goes. It's just kind of natural selection. But so you've got insulin, pulls sugar out of the blood, pulls fat out of the blood, pulls protein out of the blood, pulls nutrients out of the blood. You have glucagon that pushes energy back into the blood to be able to be transported so that you can do cool things like exercise or activities around. All right, but glucose is stored in your muscles, it's stored in your liver, it's stored in your blood, and you get it from your nutrition. So you have a few different sources of it there. So what are high glycemic foods? And glycemic is just the way that we measure the amount of the adjustment that happens when you eat a bunch of sugar. Okay. Now, little known, everybody knows about the glycemic index for the most part. Little known is the insulin index. Okay. High glycemic foods would be like your breads, your potatoes, and your sugary foods, right? And we like to demonize these. I'll come back to these in a second. Your high insulin index type foods are going to be mostly dairy. That's the most common one. If you want to, like a quick Google search, and you'll be able to see a bunch of the others. But there's lists all over the place, and I don't even know which ones you can trust. But dairy is going to cause a high insulin index, and that's one of the things that I asked that guy that I was in an argument with, or he was definitely wanted to argue about the subject. But anyway, that was online really baiting me and trying to get me into this, and I just kept on asking him questions. But I was just like, why don't you use milk instead of gummy bears to make your insulin to spike your insulin after your workout so that you can have that effect? And I don't think he understood it. Probably learned something from that myself. But anyway, so you've got sugary breads, you've got sugars, you've got breads, you've got potatoes that cause an insulin index, or a high glycemic index, and you have dairy that causes a high insulin response, right? No matter what, you're going to have an insulin response. No matter what, you're going to have a high insulin response. Now, the thing with sugar, now it's not toxic. Addiction does not mean impossible. I'm going to make the best case I can for why it's not addictive and why people are trying to tell you that it is. And there's no point in living in the extremes on this subject. Just because it might be good to keep your sugars low, to not eat tons and tons and tons of sugar, doesn't mean that you should never ever touch sugar. Doesn't mean that it's going to kill you. Doesn't mean that it's toxic. Doesn't mean that there's anything necessarily bad about it. The judgment that sugar is going to kill you, the judgment that sugar is bad, the fear-mongering around this subject it's kind of unbelievable, really. It's go online right now. Go online, scroll through your Facebook feed, and I bet you will see somebody arguing. Type in nutrition at the top, and I bet you will see somebody arguing about giving their kid some type of sugary type drink. But anyway, there's nothing toxic about this. We've been eating sugar for a really long time. Maybe we haven't been eating sugar in the amounts that we eat it right now in our society, okay? Maybe not. However, it's not necessarily bad for us in smaller quantities. So there's a big difference between the sugar that I shouldn't say that. I'm going to backtrack. So if we're eating maple sugar and we're having the argument that it's better than table sugar, or we're eating or making the argument that it's better than high fructose corn syrup, I think that you're kind of doing a losing battle with yourself. If you're saying that a banana is better than some like a Pop-Tart, then yeah, that's, now we're on to something. Do you get what I mean? But saying that it's toxic, your body deals with sugar very well. You just don't want to be waking up in the morning and having a 6 donuts and washing it down with 3 packs of sugar in your coffee, and then mid-morning at 10 a.m. you're going, oh my god, I need an energy boost, so you go and you grab an orange juice, and then at noon you have a flatbread pizza, and then in the middle of the afternoon you're all down in the dumps, so you go have another coffee and you pour in 3 packs of sugar, and then at night you go ahead and you have some pasta, and then later on you're like, you know what, I'm still kind of hungry, I'm going to go have a pint of ice cream. that's where it gets like not good for you. That's where we're getting like way out of whack. That's the extreme. That's what I think what people are saying when they're saying that's bad. That is not good. We don't want that. But also going so far the other direction and this other extreme is total BS too. Going to this point where it's like, no, it's toxic, it's going to kill you. Well, that person that ate that diet that I just described, they've maybe been doing that for 50, 60 years, and they're still alive. Obviously, it is not killing you the first time that you do that. It's probably not the best for your health, but there's no reason to sit here and get yourself so wound up about the topic that you hate on it for it. Really, in many ways, sugar is very good for you. If we could go back in time, sugar would have been able to increase the survivability of our ancestors. If we could go back 30,000 years, even if we go back 1,000 years, and we were to hand out more bread to more people would have survived. More people would have, or less people would have died of starvation. Less people would have died of malnutrition because they would have had the energy to go out and find more food. Okay, it would have been better. So, and if you're stuck on an island and you have a pack of giant size Snickers bars, or you have an apple or a pack of apples, you get to choose between these two. Which one are you going to choose? You're going to pick the apples, or are you going to pick the Snickers bars? Okay. You're stuck on a deserted island. Which one are you going to pick? You pick this one. You pick the Snickers bars because they have more sugar, they have more energy, they have more calories, they have more sustainability. This one has more fiber. In our society, we're eating way too much of the Snicker bar and not enough of the apple, right? So we need more real food in our society because we survive so easy. We just got the easy, plush lives. We drive everywhere that we go. We don't burn off our energy. We don't have to. We don't have anything in our society that's really forcing us to continue to be into health, right? Into exercise. Before, it was like you had to walk somewhere, or you had to chop your own wood, or you had to mount up the horses, or you had to do some type of physical activity. You do not have to do that anymore. So you have this abundance of sugar, and you have this lack of activity. If you match your activity to your sugar, you're not going to have any trouble at all. There's nothing toxic. This is not a dangerous thing. The sugar is not the problem. The amount of the sugar could be the problem, and the lack of activity could be the problem. But by themselves, this is not a problem. Okay? So what do you need to do? Most people could probably benefit by lowering their sugar a little bit. Most people could probably benefit by increasing their activity a little bit. So do the two of those, but don't go to this extreme of it's toxic, it's going to kill you, it's bad for you. Sugar is good for you. It increases your ability to be able to survive. Sugar is also bad for you if you're having way, way, way too much of it. Water is also bad for you if you're having way too much of it. Fat is not good at some point. Protein, you don't need to just keep on downing and downing and downing for days at a time. At some point, you don't need to be putting this stuff in your body. Now, high insulin, the dairy stuff, okay, so we know that in the last however long, there's been all these documentaries, very biased documentaries that have come out on the demonizing dairy. Now, dairy isn't necessarily gets pointed at as being like this really bad thing. It's a stretch. That's a super stretch. Okay, so there are better types of dairy though. Okay, there's conventional dairy that you just eat every day, and then there's something called grass-fed dairy. You want to be switching more to a grass-fed dairy. Grass-fed dairy has a lot less of the kind of contaminants, let's call them. Conventional dairy is fed a grain-fed diet. They don't have as much CLA. They have way more of the hormone thing. I heard a guy the other day try to make the case that he wanted his kid to have those hormones. He wanted the hormone milk. He wanted the conventional dairy because he wanted his kid to have those hormones. Something to think about here. The hormones that we're talking about there are really estrogen. Estrogen is kind of on the rise. Okay, this is the thing that we need to be concerned about. Pollution is causing an increase in the insulin. Pollution is causing males to produce more estrogen and females to produce more estrogen. So you're seeing this with girls are having their menstrual cycle earlier in life. They're demonstrating higher, more masculine characteristics, wider shoulders, more facial hair, deeper voices, larger Adam's apples. And males are doing the opposite. They're looking more female. They're taking on more feminine characteristics. There's less chest hair, there's less facial hair, their shoulders are narrower, their sperm counts today are 50% of what they were 60 years ago on average. Estrogen in your food, estrogen, so the effect of pollution in your food, the effect of pollution in the air is causing, or this is what we think, this is the theory, is causing males and females to produce more estrogen, and it's not good. So this is just a very ignorant statement that this guy made. You don't want extra estrogen in your food. So if you're gonna drink milk, which I don't think is, like the idea that where do you get your calcium if you don't drink milk? You get calcium from broccoli, you get calcium from meats, you get calcium from a lot of different places. You don't need milk to get calcium, but dairy can be good for you if you're trying to stack on muscle. Dairy has been shown to have effect on helping people lose fat. I don't like to suggest liquid calories though, because we can just consume so much of them in such an easy way. So, but if you're going to drink dairy, just make it grass-fed. It's super, super easy. It might be $1 more. Not that big of a deal, okay? When it comes to money, I just think it's like some of these things are just really kind of funny things. For instance, people will not go pay the $1 more for the grass-fed milk, even though they know they need it, even though it's better, even though they know they want that, but they'll drive all over town, way out of their way to get the better gas price, okay? And they'll be like, but it's 10 cents a gallon better. I'm like, dude, 10 cents a gallon on 20 gallons. Do the math on that. You save $2 by being able to go all over to all these places. So you drove 15 minutes out of your way for $2 to get a better gas deal, but you're not going to spend that extra $1 on that grass-fed milk. This is one of those things it doesn't drive me nuts. It's just like it's just funny. It's just funny what people will talk themselves out of, what they value, what they'll put the price of their money on. Okay, why would gas be more important than your health? Anyway, that's my little talk on blood sugar. Anyway, I didn't know how to wrap that up very well, but I said that I was going to finish this one before 1. It's 12:58, so if you guys are still with me, thank you very much. It's pretty cool that you guys hang out with me at 12:30 on weekday afternoons. But when it comes to sugar, there's nothing scary about this topic. It's just sugar. Okay, you want a certain amount of sugar in your diet. You just don't want to go hog wild with it and have massive amounts of sugar. Okay, if you were stuck in the middle of the ocean, without the water's going to kill you too. So you just don't want massive amounts of water, or massive amounts of sugar. Okay, insulin pulls nutrients out of your blood. Glucagon pushes them into the blood. Okay, we want both of those going on. Glucagon is very important for when we go to do activity. Insulin is very important for keeping homeostasis and for driving up our muscle gains. Okay, both work on protein, both work on carbs, both work on fat in your tissues. Your body is full of stored nutrients. Okay, your muscles are a form of storing protein. Your fat that you hold on the outside of your body, like on your stomach, if you grab your stomach, you probably have a little bit of fat down there. That's storage of the fat energy. Okay, you're storing glucose, which is just sugar, in your muscles, in your liver, in your blood, and you're getting it from your nutrition. You're also getting all those from your nutrition. But when it comes to the glycemic index, well, there's also an insulin index. If we really wanted to drive up insulin, use the insulin index, okay? Especially if we're trying to lose fat during the process, okay? Most of that will be dairy. If we're trying to spike our sugars, well then eat the bread, eat the potatoes, eat the sugar. But at some point, you're going to have to get clear that it's not toxic, it's not bad for you, and that addiction is not impossible to break, and it's really not addictive anyway. What it is that people are eating way too much of it. So we just got to shrink it down a little bit. One of the guys that I heard, one of the comments that I read on one of those threads where someone was really mad at somebody else was that they said that buying, the comment was about this sugary drink that this mom bought for her kid, and he said that she was unknowingly shitting on her child's future health. That is a very ignorant statement and ridiculous. The extreme BS around this subject is absurd. Sugar is not bad for you. You just don't want to be eating massive amounts of it. But anyway, thanks for being here, guys. I'm going to get off. Tomorrow is Friday. We'll be back. We'll be back tomorrow. All right. Thanks, guys.